right, good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Jagdish Chaturvedi, and Shradha, who's the CEO of Your Story, and I bring to you this new series I'm very excited about called Let's Talk Health. And I'm so happy that we're finally having something where we can talk about health. The problem is we all talk about health, but we don't talk about health with health experts. So then we start creating our own definitions of diseases and health. And then that also causes its own complications of health. So it's good that now we are looking at trying to talk about various health conditions across our country and try to bring leading experts who can help clarify a lot of misconceptions, or we can have a discussion. We can have patients, we can have experts, and everyone who can talk about health so that everyone understands what health is. And today's topic, I think, is very important, and it's also triggered because of some recent events, unfortunate events, and that is about talking about depression and one of its unfortunate consequences, which is the act of committing suicide, or the act of willfully ending one's life. And before we get started to talking with everyone else, I think my personal viewpoint over here is that depression today is being bracketed with any kind of low mood. And being a doctor and also having done a bit of psychiatry myself before I went into ENT, what I understand is that, not every low mood is clinical depression. Sometimes you may be sad because of your results, or you may be sad because of an event, or even if it is bullying, or even if it's something that went bad at your work, that not necessarily is depression. You can have low mood, you can react impulsively and also commit suicide or harm yourself or others. But when it comes under clinical depression, it is actually low mood that is there for 2 weeks at a stretch because of decreasing neurochemicals in the brain. And just like we can lose sensation of touch, we can lose sensation of vision or smell, you can lose the ability to sense happiness, which is what serotonin does, and it causes you to feel low mood. So I see a lot of people who say that, why do you want to end your life? Think about your parents, think about a better life you can improve. The thing is, serotonin stops you from thinking like that. It stops you from looking at life in that logic, and it pushes you towards dire consequences. So with that, I want to first start with Shradha. Shradha, I understand you've also been through similar healthcare challenges. I think you battled about depression and anxiety. It would be great to hear your perspective, Shradha, because I think what someone goes through and what someone sees from outside or believes is very different. And what are your thoughts about this?
Dr. Jagdish, first of all, I'm very honored to be, co-hosting this with you. What a pleasure. And let's talk health. I'm just thinking that with this, we should be able to really talk real health stuff and make it, normal. And having a doctor like you do it with me and with us is such an honor and privilege. So thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, mental health, we are talking about, we heard about the big suicide that was so tragic, right? Like, it has just shaken the whole country. And I think all of us in some way or the other go through it, but I think, and then that's why today we will further talk about this, and then I'll ask you questions. But I went through depression, and then I was diagnosed with anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder and anxiety. So this was after my mother passed away. It was a very tragic accident. And after that, I was severely, I was not feeling anything, in the sense like I was like a zombie kind of stuff. And then I went to see a psychiatrist because I just couldn't, my energy and everything had gone. And then I was prescribed a medicine called Cipralex, which I had for some time, and I had stopped flying. So I never used to fly. So from here to Bangalore to Delhi, I had to take a train and take a bus to Bombay. So everywhere, and my team used to hate me because I'm like, okay, all of us, let's go. So it was very hard, very traumatic, and very lonely at that time. But I think, seeing a psychiatrist helped me at that time, and having this medicine, it didn't show results in it's not like you just pop it and you became okay. It took some time, but I think I found my footing, and it was very good. And that's why today I'm not embarrassed to talk about it, that yes, I went through this phase, and I feel I have a tendency to get low though I'm a very happy person, but I also have a tendency to go low. So I am more generally careful, and that's why this conversation becomes so important, because we just don't talk about it. And getting you and if I may say so, your father, who's such an accomplished psychiatrist here, is very important. And with that, I would love to ask, sir, to you that you know, how should we make out, like how should we figure out that we need to see a doctor? Because generally one is so looked down upon. And even today I was seeing this new Hotstar series has come. I was seeing Arya the whole of last night, and there they say, oh, for the son, oh, medication mat karna, medication bura hai. So one, how do we figure out that we need to see a psychiatrist? And second is, how do we figure out that yeah, we need to be medicated or not?
Well, the second part is easy to answer because that will be decided by your doctor, whether you need medication or not. Coming to the first part, I mean, like any illness, depression, when we talk about depression, I don't mean a depressive mood. I'm talking about a depressive disorder.
Yeah.
So when depression is also in a continuum. So it's a mild, it's moderate, it is severe, and it's very severe. And many times it is something that we call as an adjustment disorder, which is mild, but it is because of a stressful factor. Like when you mentioned, about death of your mother, then, that's like a grief reaction.
Yeah.
So grief reaction we consider mainly as an adjustment disorder. So same way, any loss of job, position, person, death, or getting an illness or loss of health is likely to cause something like an adjustment disorder. So if a person starts suffering, that they start losing sleep, unable to eat, unable to talk to people, and they have this feeling which is very different from the usual sadness. See, that is a unique thing about depressive disorder is that one is able to differentiate. I become sad when I have a failure. I become sad when I have a disappointment. I become sad when, I have a breakup. But that sadness is different from the sadness of a depressive disorder, where, it's a whole, what we will call in clinical terms as a syndrome. So in the syndrome, there would be low mood, there would be sadness, there would be weeping spells, there would be loss of sleep, loss of appetite, but much more than that, a person is thronged with negative ideas, sad thoughts, bad thoughts, even good things don't look good. So that is when, you realize that, well, this is not the usual sadness and depression, and I need help. And when you decide that you need help and that you don't need to suffer any longer, then your professional will decide whether you need only counseling and therapy, or you need medication, or you need both medication as well as therapy. Okay, so as you mentioned, we have been talking about sadness, but sadness is not the most important or distinctive feature of depression, because like Jagdish said that it's a mood. So people feel sad, people feel happy, people feel angry, people feel anxious. So there are different moods which are there. So sadness is a mood which is there very commonly. It is, every week somebody everyone feels sad for some time or the other.
Yeah.
Here the lockdown is increased, you feel sad. You hear about so many stories of infection or death, and you feel sad. More distinctive feature is called loss of interest in things and loss of getting pleasure in things which were giving you pleasure. So that is something which general public does not appreciate, or they are not aware of. Most professionals will, this is the first thing they will ask. It's a most crucial question. So for example, if I do not enjoy my work, or if I do not enjoy my evening walk, or my playing with my grandchildren, or playing with my pet, if I don't enjoy that as I used to enjoy earlier, that is significant.
Yeah.
That is an early sign of depression. We have a term for it. It's not a very common term, but it's called anhedonia. And it's a catch question. See, sadness is stigmatized. Anhedonia is not stigmatized because people don't know about it. So they think, well, it sounds so good. Maybe it's some rare phenomena which people I would like to have anhedonia. The opposite of anhedonia is hedonism. Hedonism is, liking things. So if you like butterflies, if you like flowers, if you like nature, if you like various good things, so, that's the opposite of that. But if you stop liking these when you were liking them earlier, that's morbid. That means that you need help, and you can decide how you would like to seek help.
Wow, we learned a new term, and what was
Anhedonia, Anhedonia.
anhedonia. Wow. Okay, so we have to track our anhedonia if we are. But doctor, the question I want to ask is that you said that this adjustment, there is this adjustment grief or adjustment depression that you get, and because things, especially during this lockdown, right? Like everyone has been alone 3 weeks, 4 weeks, now 2, 3 months. So
Yes.
is this adjustment if you start feeling low, or how do you know that you're getting depressed now?
Well, we have actually started getting people. We have opened our services since the last 1 month, and the first few cases which have come are all lockdown related. So, so people are not able to cope with the lockdown, and businesses have suffered, families have suffered, jobs have suffered. There is chaos within the family because the home is lost. Because home has become a school, home has become as an office, home has become a gym, home has become a yoga center. So everything is within the home. So in all this, we have lost home. So the way to differentiate, let's say, between adjustment disorder and a depressive disorder is, in an adjustment disorder, the person is mainly preoccupied about the stressor, which is causing it. So if it is only about the lockdown, and then whenever you get a news that, okay, lockdown might be lifted and you start feeling better, then that is an adjustment disorder. A depressive disorder is when lockdown has started it, but you are depressed like it has nothing to do with lockdown. You are depressed because you think, I am good for nothing, life is not worth living, nothing will be good for me, I will always be a failure, getting negative thoughts. And, sometimes it is worse in the morning, sometimes it's worse in the evening. It has actually nothing to do with lockdown. But lockdown has just started it. So this second part which I have described, that is a depressive disorder. The first part which I have described is an adjustment disorder to lockdown. So when they talk about lockdown, they start feeling better. So if they talk with each other, hey, lockdown is doing this to me, lockdown is doing that to me, in the end they have all ventilated and they feel better that, okay, let's cope with it. But in depression, when the more you talk about it, the worse you get. So that reminds you of so many sad things in your life and so many and you think that you will never come out of it. Even if lockdown is not there, still you won't recover because that is your fate, and you're such a useless person. So all the negative thoughts come.
So that is something I would like to stress, if I may. I think, sir, like a lot of people, and they write to me also, and we see a lot on the social media. People say that if you have depression, just reach out to me, talk to me about it. I'm always listening. And here, from what you're saying, is that in an adjustment disorder, which is situation related, it may help ventilate and feel better. But if it is a depressive disorder, I think what stood out is you're saying that it can make your condition worse because then it highlights more of them. So what do you say about it? Like this mentality of talk to me, reach out to me. How should one really position that?
Well, that is helpful sometimes, like you mentioned. Suppose it's because of a stress, then it is helpful because people can talk about the stress. They can talk about possible solutions to how to cope with the stress and to deal with it and what all other various activities one could do. But if it is a depressive disorder, which is what I'm saying is a moderate or severe depression, then talking about it helps only to a certain extent. So sometimes because that is also something which is a philosophy of counseling or therapy or cognitive behavior therapy, is that you talk to a person about their negative thoughts and how they can control those negative thoughts, how they can convert the negative thoughts into positive thoughts. So just saying that, okay, talk to me, if it helps, then probably we are dealing with an adjustment disorder. But if it helps to a certain extent only, then it might be that a person actually needs more intense therapy and more intense follow-ups.
I have to tell you, doctor, that you are such an articulate psychiatrist that we all need more people like you, because you have just deconstructed all these things so clearly. again want to ask, is it, and maybe it's just hearsay, but is it that some of us are more prone to depression, more prone to getting affected by external stimuli than some of us? And how do we know that we are more prone to, if it is true, then how do we know that we are susceptible to it more than many?
Well, depression is a multifactorial disorder. Okay, so partly it is genetic. So if there is a family history of depression or bipolar or any mental illness, then a person is little more prone to get depressive disorders. Or if in the family, when I say about family, I don't really mean only parents, but it can be a family tree, your uncles and aunts and anybody who's blood related. So if they have alcoholism or substance use, that is another thing which can risk the genetic overload. So, but then that doesn't mean that anybody who has a history will develop. It just increases the risk. So, for example, if I say that the risk of people developing depression is, let's say, 3%. So, if you have a family history, it becomes 5% or 6%. So it becomes. So that is one. The second is about personality. Each person has a different personality. I have a different one. Jagdish has another one, and you have another one. And you would have seen there are people who have different types of personality. So some personalities make a person a little more prone to depression or depressive disorder. And those are people, one is that if they have a depressive personality itself, okay, which means that all along their life, when I say life, I basically mean adolescence and later on. So if they have been responding to stress with depression in the past, maybe that is what their personality is like. So they are one of the ones who are prone. If they are bipolar personality or cyclothymic personality, they are a little more prone. If they are anxious person, they are a little more prone. Or then what we call as people who are anancastic or obsessive. So people who are obsessive are a little more prone for depression. So genetics, personality, and then the stressors. So in the stressors which are there in life, if a person is not able to cope with them adequately, then one person is able to develop depression. So stress and coping is it's a very unique phenomenon. So when there is a stress, like for example, suppose I have a failure, okay, and I think, oh, I've had a failure. Let me plan better next time, and I take a break and I take tuitions and I do various things. So that would be considered as a normal coping. But if I start feeling sad and I feel that, well, I have failed and my other friends have gone down all the time, I'm preoccupied, that's an adjustment disorder. But if I fail and I start drinking alcohol, and drinking makes you feel better, and you drink more and you drink more, and then you fail again, then you drink more, then you become an addict, or you develop a dependence on that. Or if you if that triggers off, you start getting sad thoughts, negative thoughts that this failure means I'm always be a failure, then it becomes a depressive disorder. So that is what is stress and coping. Sometimes people have a neurotic coping mechanism, which is that if they have a failure, then they develop, let's say, difficulty in speaking, or their hands start shaking, or they start getting fainting attacks or something. It is something what we call as dissociation, or earlier it was known as hysteria. So that's a neurotic way. In that, you are not actually coping with this stress, but you are trying to escape out of it. You're trying to avoid it. You put the focus not on the failure, but on your health. And then, the whole thing starts. Everybody in the family says, oh, he's not, fit enough. He's not healthy. He's weak, and hence he fails. And then you are happy. Everyone is happy. So that's a neurotic way of coping.
Wow. This is like a master class in our own internal self. And this to now, Dr. Jagdish, you also please add here, is, two things which I see across, and maybe I also have on and off this issue, is that, the whole thing of self-worth, right? Like you said, that if I get a failure, maybe our ability to deal and maybe our ability to show that we are affected changes, but it affects all of us in different ways. And failure that same thing can be so personal. Do you think it is internal, if I may say so, some chemical thing, or is it a self-worth thing? And if it is a self, or is it a mix of both things? How do we work on our self-worth?
Well, it's not only these two things, it's a third thing also. It's how people react to it. So your family members. So if there is a failure and you have a family members who say, oh, okay, don't worry, next time you can do better, next time things will be different. You get support from that. Then, the impact of failure is not so bad. But if they say, oh, you are useless and look at all other children, it was such an easy subject and still you failed in this, you are good for nothing. And if they have negative comments, that actually, makes them go down. But other than that, I think it's the way it's what we call as, an identification. So how you identify with people, what are the models that you have seen, when people fail and how they deal with it. And I know of one who failed and he wrote a book on failures and what are the benefits of failure. And that's Jagdish. So that's the other way of coping is that you look at everything as an opportunity. And it's a bit of spiritual. But before we go further, I must congratulate you, Shradha, that your story is the only program on health which is starting with mental health. I have done so many programs on health in which mental health comes as the last program or the second last program when they have done away with heart and kidney and brain and bones and everything. Then they think about the mind. So I think it's very good that you start with talking about.
But I have to tell you that listening to you and now hearing, and I'm sure everyone watching this and will watch this will agree with me, that we will now get you like regularly, because it's just like listening to you. One is that you're deconstructing it so simply and clearly, and moreover, वो judgment नहीं लग रहा है. मतलब I now तो of course there are people online, मगर मुझे लग रहा था और क्या मैं पूछ डालूं. What all questions should I ask you? So thank you so much, Dr. Jagdish. I want to ask you this question. That and maybe you have such a sorted father, but I've always seen you very optimist, you doing so many things, you being on the go, you are like, and I want to understand, how do you process things in your life? Because I'm sure you would have also gone through a lot of stress, lot of hardships, but how are you able to multitask and be so energetic all the time?
Yeah, so apart from my innate superhuman abilities, I think I should credit my father for it. And I think, see, like he mentioned, that how do people react makes a big difference. I'm not as a student, wasn't one of the brightest. I have a fair share of failures. I've also had fair share of stressors, but it's also about your immediate people who you care about the most, how they react. Sometimes that hurts the most. And because I have a sorted father who's a psychiatrist, I think a lot of psychiatry was used on me very early days to kind of tweak and mold a bit of my adolescence. Of course, I was not an easy child, and I pray that my son is not anything close to what I have been. But I think it's how my parents or how my sister or how my relatives have responded to it kind of gives you a way to come up. See, sometimes what I've seen, even after doing, when I was doing a bit of psychiatry, is sometimes you don't get a chance. Your relatives or your family does not give you a chance to come out. And it's not like you don't attempt it. Of course you attempt it, but if you're constantly pushed down with a lot of criticism, with a lot of negative comparisons all the time, so taunt marna kehte hain na, too much of that, then you at the end become either angry or you become extremely defiant, and you start becoming abusive, or you could take whatever defense mechanism your personality allows you to. But if you get a chance and that chance allows you to come out, then you start realizing, it's not that bad as I thought. I remember I was very poor in mathematics. I used to fail a lot. But still, I think before my board exams, just the day before my exams, my father took me to a movie theater to watch a movie called Must, which wasn't even a hit. But it was something that it's a message to me that, that is important, but it's not that important that, you cannot look at it in a different way. You need a break out of your mind. You need to take this in that manner. And I've seen that pattern, that wherever I think parents or relatives are a little more accommodating to your shortcomings and failures, then you get a chance to strengthen them or figure out opportunities. Like, for example, I've had my fair share of failures that I could write a book and release a book on benefits of failing successfully, is because I have started to see that as an opportunity, and I see that that opportunity helps me. And once you start doing that and you see it, then only you start making that a habit. And I think with whatever multitasking comes is because I try a lot of things, because now I don't have that avoidance to fail. I don't have the pressure of what will my parents think. If I tell my father I tried something and I failed, he'll probably laugh. It's like, okay, one of those things, do something else. I know that is what I'm expecting. I'm not expecting that. Why are you wasting your time? I told you beforehand, don't do things like this. Look at that guy. It's not that. And if it would have been that, I would not share things. I would probably do it secretly, or I would probably figure out my own way. So I think a lot of that, Shraddha, makes a big difference.
I really admire you, Dr. Jagdish. We interacted. You have such an energy about you. Like, I think I have very good energy, but you beat me hands down. And, like, you're so amazing. And I'm looking forward to hosting Let's Talk Health and doing a lot of things with you.
Thanks.
But I have to now ask both of you and sir, to you, doctor, to you, on specifically on see, many of us do not have that environment, right? Like, I am not ashamed to say that I had a very difficult upbringing. As my there was a lot of alcoholism, there was a lot of abuse, there was a lot of uh, being a woman, girl, child. It was very, very hard. And so and I'm sure many people will have similar kind of a thing, because I think very few parents are normal parents. This is my thing. And we are lucky, and especially if you have a psychiatric parent, then to you A plus, some good karma. But many of us have had very difficult upbringing. Many of us do not have that kind of an equation where, even after once we grow, we go and tell any problem also to our parents or to our relatives, and we all have to stand stoic and say that, oh, we are doing well, we are earning well, we are living well. Is environment when we don't have a proper support system, what are some of the things, doctor, you will tell us to do so that on an everyday basis we improve ourselves and our reliance or our victimhood, because we didn't have the right thing, we get away with that mindset?
Well, the first thing is to be aware of it. Like you are aware of your circumstances. So if a person, that's the first step, is to become aware that when my circumstances are not the healthiest or not the most encouraging, and that this is going to cause a problem for me. So if you become aware and you acknowledge it and you accept it, you are halfway there. So
this is for everyone. We will play this. This is so important. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're halfway there. And then you work for the next other half. Now, luckily, there are other people in your environment who are not blood relatives. And these are friends. And this is a peer group. So there are always people, you would have some friend or a peer support, which is very important. And then in our society and traditions, we have teachers and superiors and the larger family, uncles and aunts. And so you have to start looking for people who would be supportive to you and who can encourage you what to do about it. Then there are self-help methods. So when we talk of depression on one hand, but there are many lifestyle things which prevent depression, or they at least reduce depression. Luckily, all exercises, walking, jogging, cycling, swimming, all of these are antidepressant because they release endorphins from your body. They make you feel good. They are healthy. You have a healthy physical, body, and you have a healthy mind. So then of course, yoga, meditation, if you like to do, and a lot of traditional complementary things are there. Many of these help. And then sometime or the other, we have alluded to this, distantly, is to get a spiritual angle. I don't mean spirituality in a highly spiritual way, but to see what is the meaning of your childhood, what is the meaning of the suffering, because all this is molding you towards a particular direction, and that is finding your path. So it's partly Buddhist, partly spiritual, partly what you mentioned about karma. So not everybody is going to have a very happy life all along. And everyone has their share of ups and downs. So being aware, looking at other lifestyle methods, using preventive methods, using all other support which is possible in your environment to take that. That should take one, to a large distance, traveling with the deficiencies or the limitations or the challenges one would have had.
Yeah. Thank you
If I
so
can
much.
add,
Yeah. Yeah.
so if I can add to that, there's a little bit of a different perspective from my side. While I agree with all of these things that sir has told, but also it is that when if you see a lot of resistance in your family or negativity in your family, what I have realized is that there is always that phase of resistance to accepting who you are, the way you are, which is always followed by a phase of acceptance. And if you're aware that that phase of resistance is a little bit of a difficult and long journey, and you know that you expect it, just being aware of that allows you to go through that. And like, for example, today, if I am nobody questions me today that I am a doctor and an entrepreneur or an author and a stand-up comedian. They say it in the same line without much alarm. 10 years or 12 years ago, or 13 years ago, when I would try to do this in front of my colleagues, it would come up with a lot of resistance. It's like, are you crazy? You're a doctor. You wasted a medical seat, is what someone would tell me. Joker ke paas patient kaun aayega, is what somebody else would tell me. And those are things, but you need to be aware. Yeah, this is a part of the phase, because I've been through this. I know, okay, this is the resistance. Aap karoge resistance, 1 saal karoge, 2 saal karoge, then you will accept. And now they only call me for shows, and now they only come as patients. So you once you are aware that that is the journey. If you're not aware, then you are startled, and then you think, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the wrong thing? So sometimes knowing the journey or the process makes a big difference. And the only one way to know the journey or the process is to do it. And one of the things that helps me is I have a very experimental look. Like, if something goes bad, I'm like, hey, this is interesting. It's not like, why they did that to me? For me, it is like, oh, this is interesting. This person behaved like that. I didn't expect that. So I become very experimental. And because of that experimental mindset, I'm like, okay, ye try karte hain. Oh, they're still shouting. Oh, ye try karte hain. Now they're getting violent. Oh, now what should I do? So when you're experimental and when you are looking at it from that angle, I think that is what has helped me try to see the journey and theorize everything. And then okay, this is a part. And in medtech or in devices, and like you as an entrepreneur, we know the journey of a technology, right? You know the journey of how to make a show. You're like, first show to aise karenge, baad mein aise karenge, because you know the whole journey. And it's just like that. That's how people accept.
Yeah, no, very, 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 very valid observation and point for all of us to consider. Very silly. And your father is here, so I don't know if I should ask, but I really want to, because all these spiritual gurus I listen to, and I listen to them every day. Like subah mein hota hai na, someone or the other you are listening to, and all kinds of books you are reading. So one of the things I have read recently, a lot of it, is food and mental health, right? Like if you eat a certain kind of food, they increase your endorphin and you feel happy. And you eat certain kind of food, then you get depressed. Is it true? And if it is true, what kind of food should we be eating? And we are middle class people, so we can't afford more.
Well, it's very interesting that you asked that, because depression and eating is very closely related. And there are a lot of people who eat because of stress, which is called stress-related eating. And they might develop, not develop, but they have features of, let's say, anorexia or bulimia or binging and all that. And because that makes them feel good. On the other hand, sometimes there is a loss of appetite, and eating is poor. But it's also a branch of psychiatry, where they looked at what happens if there are deficiencies in nutrients or deficiencies in vitamins on the mind, on the body, and on the mood. And it was called as orthomolecular psychiatry. I mean, it is a well-established branch. Not many people talk about it because it's more of research and theoretical academic interest. But that is true. I mean, the least you have to do is eat a healthy diet, and also eat things which you like. I don't want to suggest that eating should be boring, because if eating is boring, nobody is going to do that for a very long time. So have an interesting eating, eat what you like, and besides that, make sure that there is a balanced diet and you have no major deficiencies. Because of diet or because of lifestyle, vitamin deficiencies are very common. B12 deficiency, folate deficiency, vitamin D deficiency, And we have stopped getting tests for these done for our patients because it's like an epidemic. Everyone has got low. So we have started giving people, a small dose of vitamins that they can have. So, but that is because they have been, their eating has been chaotic, or they have missed out on certain things. So I would not advise on this channel what to eat, because everything has got some good things in if it is done in moderation, and if it is done in excessive, then of course it's very, very harmful. But eat what you enjoy, but to an extent that it doesn't harm your body.
Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
I can add to that is milk is rich in serotonin. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think milk is generally a good serotonin source. And that's why you see in a lot of these movies before the swagrat ki doodh pi ke jao. So it's milk, and it's supposed to elevate your mood, and milk has that component in it. But
milk has tryptophan. So tryptophan is the precursor for serotonin, and it helps lifting mood. So if a person takes regularly milk, and I don't mean that they should drink a liter of milk, but a glass is fine. Yes.
That's what we see in the movies also, a glass of milk.
Big glass.
Yeah, but tell us, so they basically, there are some food and drinks which help in uplifting your serotonin level, right?
Yeah, well, the research has been very, what shall I say, controversial, because sometimes we get good reports that chocolate is a mood elevator, and after some time we find that chocolate is actually not a mood elevator. So these are researches which are done. So I have actually given up on that. So that's why I say, eat what you like, but there are studies by nutrition experts. So having caffeine to a certain extent is good. Even having alcohol to a certain limit is good for health, but excessive is very dangerous. I won't say the same about nicotine, but most other foods are very, very helpful.
I want to have a separate conversation with you, which we will do another show on nicotine and then one on alcohol, because these are also, and especially in the last 3 months in the lockdown, this has become like so many people have come that they've got habituated to it now.
Yes, yes.
Okay, I think we've had very, very good conversation. So 2 things before we end. One is that if I feel I'm depressed or low, and so what should be my step 1, step 2, step 3 before I go and see a doctor, or should I just go and see a doctor?
Well, one is that if you are not able to control it, by controlling, I mean if you're not able to change it, if you're not able to lift your mood by various methods that we have talked till now, that means you need professional help. And if it is, like Jagdish had mentioned earlier, if it is short lasting, half day, 1 day, 2 days, you need not really bother so much. But if it is going on for a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, it's something what we call as pervasive sadness. It is there all the time. Even happy events aren't changing it. That means there is a disorder and you need help. If you start getting thoughts that life is not worth living, and start getting thoughts of harming oneself, that's a serious sign. And there is also a serious sign for family members, because they should keep the person in their, what we would say, in the eyesight, and within the range of their vision, that, the person should not be able to harm themselves. That's morbid, and that needs professional help. So if a person feels that, or let's say if a person has reduced eating and has lost weight, then that's another one. Or if you were outgoing, but you are not going out, it doesn't apply to lockdown, but if you don't feel like going out and doing things which you were doing earlier, that's a sign that you need help, and then you should see a specialist.
There's a very nice question which has come from Ruchi, that, and I have also faced this in my own circumstances since childhood. How do you convince someone who is depressed or anxious or is low to, and especially, maybe sometimes they are elder to you, sometimes they are more strong and influential than you in your own family. How do you convince them to go and see a doctor? Because most people say, "Hey, mujhe to nahi koi problem hai."
Exactly. So that is my follow-up question before you answer, is that there's a lack of insight in certain cases of depression where the person does not feel that they have depression or they can do harm. And I was just about to come to that question, but I'm glad that it is asked. But I think this is something a lot of people have reached out to me saying that as friends and family, if somebody is not compliant to the advice of seeing a doctor, what does one do during those times?
Yeah, yeah, very good question.
Well, it is again. I mean, coming back to what we were talking earlier. It is to help the person become aware of their experiences. And it takes a little effort that they can. You make them compare when they felt sad earlier and how they are feeling depressed now. That it is qualitatively different. It is quantitatively different, and there are many more things which are there. And to educate them that like there is a physical problem, there can be a mental health problem, and depression is treatable, depression is curable, and then depression can actually prevent a lot of complications which can happen. So I actually don't see that so much as a problem now, because a lot of people come with depression, and many of them come with very mild depression. I'm very happy that people are becoming very aware. That type of stigma which was there 20 years back, 30 years back is not there. The
Yeah.
stigma might be there in older generation, my generation of people. But I have found college students, youngsters, IT professionals, a lot of people know. Especially people who are working, the moment they find that their efficiency is going down, and there are 10 people to point that out to them that your efficiency is going down, and then they think, well, I was all right before, what is happening to me? So in order to improve their efficiency, to improve their quality of life, to improve their, get rid of their suffering, people are seeking out. And we see people from all economic background, educational background, from all job backgrounds, people who come and seek for help. Many times we wonder the problem is, or the health problem is so mild, why did they come? But they are very conscious about it. They don't want it to become worse. So that is one thing. Other is people who, like we talked about, who is more predisposed. So if there's, let's say, a family history of depression or alcoholism, or if they have already had depression in the past, those people are, amazing, because they come within first few days. They don't even wait for 2 or 3 weeks. They said, I can make out. This is the same thing which happened in my previous episode, and I have started losing sleep. So they want to nip it in the bud, and they come for it.
Wow.
We have been waiting for a time, like when they say, what are the signs of prosperity in health? If you develop hypertension, if you develop diabetes, that means you are prosperous, you are doing well. These are illnesses of, success. So we are waiting that when people will start saying that, I'm getting depression also. I have so much work, and I'm not able to cope with it, and I'm getting depressed. It will become a sign of prosperity. I'm not trying to undermine the value of the suffering, but I've seen people who say, whose employers say, how come you're not getting affected by the stress of work? So either you're not doing enough, or when they say, this person is stressed out, this is his or her capability to do things. So depression is, the awareness is quite good. Awareness for anxiety is even better, because people start feeling tense and nervous and edgy and snappy and all that, and there are many people to tell them, hey, this is not how you wear, so you better do something about it.
Yeah.
We have not talked about, and that's also an important part of depression, is bodily symptoms. So there is something which is, I would say, cultural in our culture, is that we don't talk about feelings. Talking about feelings is not encouraged. As in the West, people would say, hey, I am down in dumps and I'm feeling low and I'm feeling blue. We don't talk like that, because that is considered synonymous with weakness.
Yeah.
Or laziness, or that you are just acting, or that what is the problem? Why don't you snap out of it? So a lot of people in our society who develop depression develop physical symptoms. So they develop headache, they develop backache, or they develop tiredness, fatigue, and that is acceptable by the family. They say, well, you are feeling tired, you need to see a doctor. If they say I'm feeling sad, they will say, well, talk to me. I will take you out of depression. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and when they go to the doctor will know. And I hope that the doctors will start checking about mood, and they talk about stress. And that is how depression it's probably one of the very common manifestations of depression is bodily symptoms. Not all depressives come with sadness and crying. A lot of them come with multiple aches and pains and fatigue, tiredness, unable to cope with the physical stress, what we call as somatic symptoms or bodily symptoms.
Wow, wow.
That's
That
great.
was very new for me. Huh? Sorry?
So,
Yeah,
Shraddha, I wanted to touch on one topic which we haven't touched. I hope we have time for that.
yeah, yeah.
And, and that is the topic of suicide. And I think, there are a lot of questions around that, especially after what happened with Sushant Singh Rajput. So a lot of people, they ask me, they write to me. And one of the things is to differentiate suicide from an impulsive reaction to a particular event. And sometimes something very bad happens and people impulsively take decisions. And sometimes it is a part of a depressive disorder. But when a family member or someone suspects a potentiality for suicide, how does one deal with it? How does one identify, the difference? Because even in many times we see it after someone passes away. A lot of people said, I kind of felt it, I kind of saw this, I kind of do that, but they couldn't do anything about it or probably did not know what they can do. But I think it is apt that we also, try to lay out steps on what can be done in these situations.
Very important question.
Well, many times we link suicidal thoughts and ideas and behaviors and attempts to depression. But not all persons who commit suicide are depressed. There's only one proportion. There are many other causes why people commit suicide. And one of them, many of psychotic experiences, sometimes they hear a voice. Sometimes a voice will say, you are useless. Why don't you kill yourself? Why don't you jump from here? So, sometimes it's the voices. Sometimes it is a paranoia when they find the whole environment is hostile. Everybody is watching them. Everybody is talking about them. Everybody is against them. Nobody loves them. Everybody hates them. So, these are psychotic experiences. There are other experiences which are very odd experiences which a person is not able to explain what is happening with me. And they're not able to process the thoughts that, how do I deal with it? Then there are suicides because of alcoholism. There are sometimes suicide because of delirium. The person is so confused, they don't know what they are doing, and they think that if they are doing, trying to harm themselves, it is going to kill them. They don't know. But a suicide attempt actually is like a cry for help. Suicide attempt is that I have got such feelings and such thoughts and such experiences which I cannot verbalize. I don't know how to talk about them. The only way I think which is left is that I should just leave this world. So it's a cry for help. So a cry for help is that, it has to be heard. So that is one time then, we should, it's not very easy. If a person is finding it difficult, we don't expect that the moment we ask, the person would start talking about it and, pour the heart out. It doesn't happen so easily. So one has to have that confidence that, okay, this person can help me and I can help this person. So allow them to talk about their experiences. Sometimes they might need medications. A lot of time, actually what they need is support. And they need what we call as, an eyeball to eyeball type of supervision. They should not be let out. You won't believe many suicides in families happen within the bathrooms and toilets. People hang from the shower or a tap or whatever it is, and people jump and or overdose with pills. So there are many other methods by which people do attempt suicide. So these are things which are early signs. In depression, it is straightforward. It starts with depressive thoughts. It goes to hopelessness. Nothing good can be done. I cannot be helped. Then they start getting suicidal ideas. Sometimes they make an attempt, first. So they might slash themselves or take about 4 or 5 tablets just to. So that's an early indicator that there is a suicidal risk. So suicidal risk management is always by professionals. and if necessary, hospitalization. If not at home, then it should be under direct supervision on a day-to-day basis, on an hour-to-hour basis, on a minute-to-minute basis.
Thank you, Doctor. You've addressed such a, I, I don't know what's the right word, but such a pressing need to be answered, because, yeah, it just happens, and it just happens, but it just devastates and in this case, like when we hear at such a scale, then it just depresses and makes us. I'm using the word loosely, but it just saddens so much. Like,
Yes.
why someone who had everything going for them, why do they think of taking a step like that? Yeah.
Well, funnily, death instinct is there in everyone. Like there is a life instinct. It is called thanatos. We all have it. So there is a death instinct in there in everyone. And whenever there are such vulnerable times or situations, it becomes much more prominent. And other than impulsive suicides, which are very difficult to prevent, many other suicides, there is a slow and gradual process building up. That is what, as Jagdish was mentioning, people say, well, I saw it coming and I knew that this was happening. But there are, enough impulsive suicides when people say, I didn't expect this at all.
Yeah.
And the person would have been in one impulse that, well, everything is gone and the only way to deal with it is that I should die. And, there is no one around and no one to talk to them about it. So impulsive suicides are very difficult to deal with, and these can happen.
Yeah. Anyways, now we'll end. I think this is one of the most valuable conversation I have been a part of, and thank you so. Thank you is an understatement. Somehow I'm just losing words today, because this is like such a deep conversation than the regular conversation we do. Last, to everyone watching this and who will watch this, Doctor, what would you say? What would you suggest if we are going through our own things in our own minds? How should we be coping with it?
So I think there's a follow-up question to that by someone. So I just thought I can add it to it. Somebody's also said that if something really bad happens in the past, how do you overcome with it? And I think that's also a part of the question that you're asking, is if something happens, how do you deal with it and what should one do? So sir, how would you summarize this whole thing in terms of takeaways for listeners?
Well, I would like to end with a very positive note, and that is that depression is an illness, and suicidal thoughts and behaviors are a part of an illness, and that they can be treated. There's no need to feel shy or ashamed of getting a mental health problem. It is it just shows that you are human. And if you are human, if you have feelings, you are going to have problems with your feelings, like you're going to have with your blood vessels or with your blood sugar and with your, bones and joints. So it's a sign of being lively. So, but there's nothing wrong with it. And there is no problem which cannot be overcome either by self or with the support of others or with professional help. And that, one should be aware of it, not only about oneself, but about the ones who are your near and dear ones, and about people whom you care, so that you can help them, save them, and you help yourself and feel good about it.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm like so inspired today. Thank you. And one question someone has sent, and I'm sure this must be in the minds of everyone who will watch this, is why, when we don't have anyone to support us mentally, like when we have absolutely no one, what do you do? So I would just request you most humbly that we're going to have Let's Talk Health email ID. Write to us, and you can send it anonymously, and we love to help answer. And that's why I've got Dr. Jagdish, partner in crime, with me. So you also have some support, and he now we know he has a father in this space to support. So we are going to write to us. Like, if you absolutely have no one, then please don't think twice. Write to us, and we'll see how best. If nothing else, we can just have a Zoom conversation. So because yeah, it's again a mindset that to say, like, be entrepreneurial there. If we want to find someone, you'll find. It's like going and finding a date. We do find. So let's find someone to listen, and we love to listen to you in Let's Talk Health. And thank you, Dr. Santosh. It is such an honor, such a privilege, and you've been so insightful today. So thanks a lot. It was wonderful.
I would also like to thank both Shradha and Sir over here. I think, also all the attendees, because I think this is a great start and it's a great positive movement for Let's Talk Health. And I hope, sir, you I enjoyed my Father's Day with you. I hope you enjoyed your Sunday with me. And I hope everyone saw this. I want to make a disclaimer that this is not a case of reverse nepotism that, apne father ko liya hai show pe. I want to also very clearly say that we gave a lot of options of psychiatrists and this was just picked out because, that's the thing. But at the end of the day,
Yes,
I think...
I agree with him. And yes, I do agree. And I'm happy. I take some credit. I took the right decision.
Absolutely. And but I think this is a great start, and we should keep it rolling. And please, like Shradha said, don't stop your questions. You can reach out to us, and it is a very big topic. And like also Sir mentioned, it is not something that you can deal with over a few hours, even with the person who's dealing with it, or even if we talk about it. I'm sure we'll have to have multiple smaller segments of sessions where we can deep dive into various aspects so that we can break this awareness. I saw someone write in the comment section that in Western countries, going to a psychiatrist is not taboo, but it's a taboo here. And one of the reasons is that we don't talk about it much. So let's talk health and let's break the taboo.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Jagdish, to our next show together. And thank you, Dr. Santosh. Thank you. Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.